Good evening, everybody. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Miriam. Hi, Brian Incognito. I'd want to welcome everyone to this evening's Torah 101, where we're talking about Yitro in Hebrew. In English, it's Jethro. And the portion is from Exodus, Shemot 18:1 to 20:23. And the Haftarah, which is actually very exciting too, is in Isaiah. I love the book of Isaiah. He's a wonderful prophet. So let's begin without further ado. I'll share the screen. If my mouse would be cooperative, here we go. Okay. And let's begin reading. So Jethro, this is a very interesting character. The portion, the parasha, is named after Yitro, Jethro, who it says here, Kohen Midian. So the word Kohen is not only for the Hebrews, because here you have a priest, a Kohen of Midian, who was a non-Jew. He was a Gentile. He was a Midianite, and he was Moses's father-in-law. It says now Jethro or Yitro, the Kohen of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, how that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. And Yitro, and it repeats, Moses' father-in-law took Tzipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her away, and her two sons. So from this, we know that Moses, while he was doing all those things in Egypt, had sent Tzipporah and her. It's interesting because it says her two sons. So Moses really didn't have a lot to do with them in those days. So her two sons back to live with her father while he was doing all that he had to do in Egypt. Now, the first one, of whom the name of the one, it says the one, or one was Gershom. Ger means stranger or a ger. Shom, there. I have been a stranger in a strange land. And I want you to see something here, because it says that Moses was a ger. Okay, sometimes we think only the foreigners are gers. But again, let's look at what it says. A ger is the one, he was a stranger in Egypt. He wasn't part of the people. And it says here, in a strange land. Remember, we had read in, I think it was, let me see if I put that in my notes. Oops, hang on a second. Name of one, in Parashat Bo, in Exodus 12, verse 43, when we were talking about the Pesach, it says, no stranger shall eat of it. Okay? And the word was nach, here it's nachriah. The word for this kind of stranger is a person who is not interested in the land that he is living in. He's only interested in where he came from. So here, Moses was the ger, the stranger, in a completely foreign land, had nothing to do with where God, with God. These were alien to God. And I hope that's understandable, because we take words and we appropriate them as if they belong to us, to our people. Like we think all the ger are anybody who isn't a Jew. But here it shows Moses was a ger. We take the word Kohen to say, oh, everybody who's a Kohen is a Jew. And here you have the priest of Midian, Jethro. So we have to be careful when we translate, when we change things that God is actually saying. Now, the second son, it says the name of one. It says Shenei, and her two sons. Okay. Asher Shem ha-echad, echat, the one son. And then it says the name of the other, but it really isn't the other. It says V'shem ha-echat, the same word. So both of them are one son. One is one, and one is the other one. And the name of the other one was Eliezer, for God, which means the God of my father is my help. So it's really Eli is my God, Itzer is help. And he delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Yitro, again it repeats, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife. Now he's back. It's his sons and his wife to Moses into the wilderness, Bamidbar, where he was encamped at the Mount of God. This was at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. It was known in other languages as God's mountain. They know that even if you go today, they'll say that's God's mountain. And he said to Moses, I, your father-in-law, again, Yitro, I'm coming to you and your wife and her 2 sons with her. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. Here you see the custom of the land. He bowed down, he kissed him. It was a sign of reverence, of honor of this gentleman who was his father-in-law. And they asked of each other's welfare. You see that in many cultures, where before they even say anything, how are you? Some say, did you sleep well? Some say, did you eat well? They always make it personal first. And then they get down to business. They came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law, again mentioning father-in-law, when I see this word, this phrase mentioned over and over again, it sparks in my mind, there must be something about the fact that they're bringing up so often that he's his father-in-law. He held a position. The parents, the father and the father-in-law, were places of authority. And even though he wasn't a Hebrew, he still held authority and was able to evoke a sense of honor. He bowed down and he kissed him. Like when we go meet somebody, we kiss them on both sides. If you're in Russia, you kiss on 3 sides and then on the mouth. It's a greeting. So Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians because of Israel, all the hardship that had come upon them while they were on their way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good, here it says hatovah, which the Lord had shown to Israel, in that he delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Yitro said, blessed, Baruch, Yud He Vav He, blessed is the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians. So here he is acknowledging that this is Yud He Vav He. And I have a feeling, because he lived at the base of Mount Sinai, that he himself might have had some experiences with the God of Israel before this. So who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now look at what Yitro says. Now I know that Yud He Vav He is greater than all the other gods, for he dealt proudly against them, for all the things that he did to them, against their arrogance. So we see that he's admitting that the Lord is greater, but he's not admitting that he is the only God. What I've seen, listen, I've been studying the Torah now I figured it's almost 35 years. It's 34 years, the whole Bible. And my first few years, I began learning it from the Christians. And later, I started studying it from the Jewish perspective. But I remember how people in Christianity were so excited when they were missionaries, and they would go to different countries and they would bring their God, Jesus Christ, to these people in these foreign lands. And I remember they would go to India. Now, in India, there are thousands of gods, millions of gods. And so when they accepted Jesus, people were so excited about how they accepted Jesus. But for them, they were just adding one more God to all the rest of their gods. And here I see the same thing with Yitro. It says he's greater than all the gods. So he's still admitting that there are other gods, but he's the greatest. And Yitro, again, Moses' father-in-law, he took a burnt offering and sacrifices for God. And Aaron came and all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. And it came to pass the next day that Moses sat down to judge the people. And the people stood around Moses from morning to night. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing to the people, he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing to the people? Why are you sitting alone? And all the people stand around you from morning until evening. Are you Meshigah?" And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, when they have something to deal with, they bring it to me. And I judge between a man and his neighbor. And I make them know the statutes, it says here, chuki, the statutes of God, and his Torah." So he's teaching them what he's learned. And Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you're doing is not good. You're going to wear yourself out, both you and the people who are with you. For this burden is too heavy for you alone, and you are not supposed to perform it by yourself. Listen to my voice, and I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. You can be before the people before God. You can stand before God for the people, and you can bring all their problems to God. And you shall teach them the chukim and the Torah, and you shall show them the way that they must walk, their halacha, and the work that they must do. Moreover, now this is really important, you shall provide out of all the people able men, those who fear God, men of truth, who hate unjust gain. In other words, they won't be bribed. They won't give away truth and justice for money. And place such over them to be rulers. Some will rule over 1,000 or thousands. Some will be rulers of hundreds. Some will be rulers of 50s and some of 10s. And we can see that even in our world today. If you look at the President of the United States, he's ruler of thousands, if not more, millions even. Then you have local governments who rule. You'll have a mayor of a city who will rule over thousands. You'll have local boroughs who rule over less. You'll have 50s, people who rule in a smaller community, and rulers of 10. In our congregation, I am one of the rulers of a few, the local families. I don't rule alone. I have a panel of men who I consult with. But we are all given people who we rule over, and we have to pray that we are people who fear God, people who love truth, who hate unjust gain, and will judge accordingly. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter, let them bring them to you. But every small matter, they can judge themselves. They don't need you for everything. And that will make it easier on you, and bear the burden with you. And if you will do this thing, and God commands you so, he's reminding him, to check with God if what I'm saying is right and it's true. Then you shall be able to endure. And all these people shall also go to their place in peace, because they won't be sitting around all day waiting for just you. Imagine there were 2-3 million people there, and they were all going to one person, to Moses. It was impossible. And Moses obeyed Shema, the voice of his father-in-law, even though he wasn't a Hebrew, but he was giving the wisdom of God. And sometimes we are called, like I went today to see a notary, to do my will. She has knowledge that I don't have. She may not believe in God, but she is able to help me. And sometimes we're going to go to people who are not necessarily Hebrews who listen to the voice of God, but we need to listen to them anyway because they have the experience. And Moses chose able men from Israel and made the heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of tens. And they judged, shoftu, they were shofet, judges, at all seasons. The hard cases they brought to Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses allowed his father-in-law to depart, and he went on his way back to his own land. Jerry, would you like to read? You have to turn your mute off.
Now, eh?
Yes.
In the 3rd month after the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai.
Okay, so let's look here. We're already, it was an 11-day journey from when they left to Mount Sinai. And already they're going into their 3rd month. So 2 months had passed already. Okay.
And when they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the wilderness of Sinai, they encamped in the wilderness, and there Israel encamped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself.
I love that phrase, on eagle's wings. That is one of the most beautiful pictures that God gives us, because the protection of the eagle for his children is unparalleled in nature. It's absolutely beautiful.
Now, therefore, if ye hearken unto my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be mine own treasure from among all peoples, for all the earth is mine.
Let me stop you here for a moment, Jer. If you will listen to my voice, and when you hear hearken or listen, it's shamua, really obey, guard the words that I'm saying. And if you will keep my covenant, he hadn't given us his covenant yet, but he's telling them, so it's either this came after he came down with the Torah, I'm not sure, but remember, the Torah is not chronological. It's giving us principles. So sometimes things are out of order. Now here it says, you shall be my own treasure. The word for treasure is segula. We are segula, his treasure from among all peoples, because the earth belongs to him.
And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel.
Okay, let me stop you again here. A kingdom of Kohanim. It says, Mamlechem Kohanim. The whole entire people who came out of out of Egypt, all the people were meant to be a kingdom of Kohanim. It says, V'goy kadosh. Again, whenever you hear the word goy, what do you think? Jer?
Well, we think Gentile, but it's any nation, right?
Exactly. And here, Israel was a goy, to be a nation separated, kadosh. Remember, holy does not mean that they had halos over their heads, that they were special, righteous people that were godly. It means that they were a nation that was going to be separated from all the other nations for him. You could say holy, WHOLLY, holy, separated to God. So remember again, these words, ger, kadosh, goy, they have been Kohen, they have been kidnapped by our own people and made to be something very specific to Judaism, and they are not. Okay, continue.
Just one thing.
Yes, yes, Miriam.
What we were saying before, that if you keep my covenant, etc. And we don't, at this point, you don't know the chronology, if this happened before the giving of the
Ten Commandments, right?
Yeah, but even if that's so or not so, God had already revealed himself to the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So these things had to have been handed down. So it's not like they didn't have they knew what God had blessed them with
Yes,
with a way of living life and having moral standards.
yes, exactly. You're right, Miriam. Absolutely.
Yes, Miriam, and alternately, Miriam, one can say, and you will follow my instructions, and they are as follows. So you could say you will follow my instructions, could precede the instructions.
True.
And afterwards, it could precede and follow, either way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and set before them all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord hath spoken, we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people unto the Lord.
Now, this is really important. Our ancestors, those who stood at the base of Mount Sinai, we come from them, and they made a vow before God, the God of creation. All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And we have to keep that. And because when we don't, we get into trouble.
And the Lord said unto Moses, lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and may also believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the ram's horn soundeth long, it shall come up to the mount.
So this to me reminded me, this is like a precedent, a preceding. Remember, God is giving us a warning. We don't always know why these things happen, but it was always to protect us. I remember when the 10 Commandments were placed in the ark along with Aaron's rod, and the jar of manna, and it would go with them wherever they went. And they lost the ark for many years. It lived among some of the nations that were surrounding Israel. And King David was sent to bring the ark back to Jerusalem. And they put the ark, and God was very clear about who could touch that ark. And anybody who stepped out of bounds and touched it would be put to death, just like it says here, whoever touches the mount will be put to death. And Uzzah, the ark, the wagon that was holding the ark was about to fall because the wheel had gone into a hole, and he grabbed it and he held on, he pushed it so that it wouldn't fall, and he was immediately put to death by God. So we don't always know why these things happen. I'm sure that our rabbis have explanations, but suffice it to say that when God tells us not to do something, because he has total understanding and vision, he warns us, and he made it in such a way, don't do it or you're going to die. It's like a mother explaining to a child not to put their fingers in the electric socket or they'll die. They don't understand why, but the mother knows. And you cannot explain to a baby why they're not to do something. So this is what that brought up in my mind.
And Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their garments. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day. Come not near a woman. And it came to pass on the third day, when it was morning, that there were thunders and lightning, and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of a horn exceedingly loud. And all the people that were in the camp trembled.
Can you imagine what it was like standing at this mountain? It was in the morning, and there were thunder and lightning and a thick cloud. There was darkness on the mount, and the sound of the shofar. It doesn't say where it was coming from. It could have been coming from the heavens. And all the people were shaking there at the bottom of this mountain.
And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet God. And they stood at the nether part of the mount. Now Mount Sinai was altogether on smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire.
Wow.
And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the horn waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai to the top of the mount. And the Lord called Moses to the top of the mount. And Moses went up. And the Lord said unto Moses, go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. Because
we cannot look at any manifestation of God, or we would die.
And let the priests also that come near to the Lord sanctify themselves.
You see, here there were no Kohanim yet. That's why I wonder, when did this happen? Okay. Strange.
Lest the Lord break forth upon them. And Moses said unto the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou didst charge us, saying, set bounds about the mount and sanctify it. And the Lord said unto him, go get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee. But let not the priests and the people break through to come up unto the Lord, lest he break forth upon them. So Moses went down unto the people and told them.
Beautiful. Well read. It was perfect for your deep voice. And this is where we get our covenant. You know, I heard an Israeli man the other day. I don't know if he was a politician. I don't know who he was. And he said, Israel does not have a constitution. And I thought to myself, that is the furthest thing from the truth. This chapter, Exodus chapter 20, is the constitution of our people. And God spoke all these words saying, as a matter of fact, it used to be read every Shabbat in synagogue for years and years and years. And then for some reason, maybe the rabbis thought that it would make the 613 less important. They stopped reading it. But every Shabbat in our community, we read these on every week. I am the Lord your God. This first one, was changed by the Christian church, where they left out this first part and they kept only the second part for the first commandment. And the first part is really important. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. So he's describing who he is. I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. And when I tell some Christians that I meet, when they say to me that Jesus Christ is God, and I say, well, did Jesus Christ bring the people out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage? Some say yes, but they get confused. And some just don't know what to say, because it wasn't Jesus who did it, was Moses. And they kind of laugh at me because they say, you don't understand these deep spiritual things.
It wasn't Moses either, it was the God of Moses.
Exactly. You're right. Number 2, you shall not make any graven image, nor any manner of likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth below, that is in the water under the earth. Do not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, and showing mercy unto the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, if you look at one of the largest religions in the world, they all have images that they bow down to and that they worship. Statues, obelisks, all kinds of things that are made, and God is saying, do not bow down to them. Every religion on earth has its statues. And it says, I am the Lord your God. I'm a jealous God. Doesn't mean that he's jealous like we're jealous. My husband is looking at another woman, I'm jealous. That's not what I mean. It's more the idea of he's zealous for his people. He doesn't want us to fall into the hands of the enemy. And it says, he visits the iniquity of the fathers, which is the sins of the fathers, are passed down to the children for 3 or 4 generations, for those who hate him, or those who do not want to have anything to do with God. And 3rd or 4th generation has the understanding of a limited period of time. Whereas he shows mercy to the 1,000th generation. And in Gematria, 1,000 stands for eternity. So he will show mercy to those forever, to those who love him and those who keep his commandments. That is so beautiful. Now we get to number 3. Do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now, what do you think this means, to take something in vain?
It can mean a few things. It's not just literally the pronouncing of the name, but it's how we think about the God of the universe. When we talk about things like mocking God or making little of the idea of a personal God, or even disobedience, or even talking about God in a way that demeans who he is. I mean, there are many things.
Exactly. Jared, do you have any ideas of what that could mean to you?
Well, if we mention God's name, we should we should use it with a purpose and a reason,
with reverence and honor.
and reverence goes without saying, and but not to use it just to say this one did this or that one did that. Like if you use God's name, it should be it should be used for something concrete, you know.
Right. And many people, and I noticed that a lot when I was involved in Christianity, that many people would say, oh, God told me this. Oh, God told me that, this and that. Always, you know, and not only that, what has happened in Judaism is that they will no longer allow us to pronounce Yud He Vav He, or to say Adonai outside the synagogue, because they say it's taking God's name in vain. And I understand that they're trying to do good. They built this fence they call the 613. They've built the fence around. This is what they call the Torah. They call it the law, so that we won't break his Torah. But it has nothing to do with saying his name. It's how we say his name, is what we use his name for. And for putting words in his mouth, saying things that he never said or never meant. Number 4. Now this, most people, Christianity changed it, and so many Jews, they say, it's not important. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, to separate it from the rest of the week. We have 6 days to work, to do all our work. But the 7th day is a Shabbat. It's a Sabbath to the Lord thy God. In it you shall do no manner of work, not you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servants, male or female. There's no Shabbos goy. They had to have a Sabbath day of rest as well. Not even the cattle were supposed to work, nor the stranger, the ger, who is within our gates. That's why this whole idea of keeping our businesses opening and letting the Gentiles run it goes against the Torah. It's not what he said. Because in 6 days, God made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested. It didn't mean he literally needed to rest. He stopped doing the work of creation on the 7th day, and he blessed it, and he set it apart from the rest of the day of the week. And it says here, I just want to find it here. We are to do no manner of work. Here, the word kol malacha. The word in Hebrew for melach means salt. Melach means salt. And from salt, we get salary. He does not want us to earn a salary. If someone is a doctor or a nurse and they're called in for an emergency on the Shabbat, they can do it. But many people I know who would do that would give up their salary on that day because they did not want to break this commandment. And it's more than just a day of rest, because some people say, well, what's wrong with resting on Sunday? It's because it isn't about the Sunday. It's about the day that God set apart for Israel. It's a sign that he exists, because there could be 8 days a week. There could be 10 days. The Shabbat is a sign of God's very existence. Number 5, honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. In other words, if we have honor, no matter, it doesn't say we have to love our parents or we have to even like them, but we need to give them honor. Honoring is, here it's kaved. Kaved means glory. It's like they have a special, like, in Yiddish, it's koved. They have a special role. They gave us life. No one can replace that, mother and father, even though this society today is trying to get rid of mother and father. We are to honor them, honor their memory while when they're here, when they're not here, and honor them while they're here by taking care of them in the very best way we can, so that we may live long. You want to know the secret to long life? Keep the Shabbat and honor your parents. That's the secret to longevity and to good health. The middle two have to do with our relationship with ourselves, because if we love ourselves, we will keep the Shabbat, we will honor our parents. The first three had to do with our relationship with our God. He was the one who brought us out of slavery. We're not to bow down and worship idols, and we're not to take his name in vain. Now, the last five have to do with our neighbor. You are not to murder. Now, this is not kill. This is premeditated murder. Do not commit adultery. And that also has other meanings, not only that they cheat on their spouse, but they adulterate any of God's message. When it's adulterated, it's like our rabbi would tell us, when you go to the store and you buy 2% milk, you're really not buying milk. You're buying water with 2% of the cow's milk put in there. So it really has very little to do with milk. And it was adulterated. And we are not to adulterate God's word. Do not steal. Do not steal from your neighbor in anything, not even his character. Do not steal his reputation. Do not tarnish it. You shall, which goes into the next one, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't lie, don't gossip, telling lies about something that your neighbor did when he didn't do it. It's not only about going to court to witness against them, but to tear down a reputation of a person is a terrible thing, because we are all made in his image. And the 10th one, do not covet. Covet is more than being jealous or envious. Coveting has to do with, I will do anything to have what they have, even if I have to steal it from them. Their house, their wife, their servants, their animals, their cars, anything that is your neighbor's. And when our Rabbi Yeshua was asked, how do you sum up these 10 commandments? He said, you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your might, covering the first 3. And you are to love your neighbor, covering the last 5, as you love yourself, covering the middle 2. So he was summing up the 10 commandments with that. And all the people perceived the thunders and the lightnings. It touched their very core, and the sound of the shofar and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they trembled and stood far off. And they said to Moses, you speak to us and we will listen, but don't let God speak to us in case we die. We didn't want to listen to him then, and we don't want to listen to him now. And Moses said to the people, do not fear. God is going to test you, and his fear may be before you so that you do not sin. So if we keep those commandments close to our hearts and we have reverence for him, we have a healthy fear of him, so that because God is going to test us, and let his fear be before us at all times so that we do not break away in sin. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said to Moses, this is what you're going to say to the children of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I spoke to you from heaven. Do not make, now he's going to clarify, or he's going to give commentaries. In the next few chapters, we're going to see that on these original 10. This was the only thing written by God's finger. The rest is going to elaborate upon it. Don't make gods of silver or gods of gold. You shall not make, and this is what we do. We are the almighty dollar is our God today of silver and gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings, your sheep, your oxen. Every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stones, for usually they would have to hew it with an iron, either a hammer or an axe. For if you will lift a tool upon it, you have profaned it. These were acts of war. These were used in war, and he wanted to bring us peace. Neither shall you go up by steps to my altar, so that your nakedness shall not be uncovered. We always had to do it with propriety. And now we're going to, oh no, that's the end, 2023. That's the end of this portion. Wow. Very powerful, powerful, powerful message. So if we just kept those close to our hearts, and he put them in our hearts, these 10 commandments, and now he's writing them. He's writing them in stone for us to have. And we, taken out of the nations, we are taken out of the goyim and made into a goy kadosh, a holy nation, a separated nation. That's the only difference. We're no different than the nations. The only thing that makes us different is that we were to be emissaries. We were to be carriers of these 10 commandments, and we were to live them and to bring them and to teach them, live them, not only talk about them. My father used to say, don't do as I do, do as I say. Well, that doesn't work, because we mimic, we imitate what our parents have done. So we need to be very careful how we behave. And when we behave wrong, and we will, and we do, each and every day we fail. But we have a God, as my rabbi would say, is the God of beginning again. So that when we go to him, we do teshuvah, we turn to him and we say, God, I failed again. Please forgive me. Let me do better. Help me, and I will do better. And each time we do better. And that's how we learn. And that's why this parasha is probably one of the most important in our whole Torah.
It's amazing because every culture pretty much has some sort of moral code, whether it's really a moral or immoral. But we only know, as you said the other day, we only know a moral code from somebody who's bigger than us, in the sense of you can't have, people can say, well, we know what to do. It's basic to know what to do, what's right. But we don't really. We think we do, but we don't. So we need something transcendent to give us codes that are absolute and not changeable. You know, you can't say, well, in this society, all the babies are killed. In that society, the girls are killed. And in that society, this is okay. It's all relative, but this is something given by God for the whole world.
By the creator of the universe, the creator of absolutely everything we can see with our visible eyes. He created it.
Yeah.
If you don't trust or believe in a creator, then it means nothing.
That's why the first commandment, without God, you can't really understand what it means to I mean, you can to a certain extent. If people say, well, as long as you don't hurt me and I don't hurt you, but it's way beyond that.
Exactly. Jerry, any wisdom coming from your side?
Oh, wisdom. Wow, wow, powerful word here. Yeah. No, I just didn't make a comment at the beginning when I just make a small thing. He said like Moses had two sons. One was Gershom, one was Eliezer, and if you say it like that, it follows, because that's what it's written. It's the same word, and it was written in English, and the other one was Eliezer. But if you say it the way I just said it, I think it's not necessary to say and the other one. I have two coats. One is blue, one is red.
Right.
So I just wanted to because people get. I thought about that for a second when it first came down. I was wondering how it would be.
And
Also,
it's interesting. Just 1 second before I forget. It's interesting about his two sons, because serving God is a calling. Moses served God. You can't pass that down to your children. You don't hear anything about Moses's two sons. The one who followed Moses, the one who inherited Moses's role was Joshua, who stayed with him everywhere. You never hear anything about his sons. So that's important. Each of us has a calling. It has nothing to do with an inheritance. It has nothing to do with a bloodline. It has to, you always hear these race theories, the critical race theory, being a Jew is a race. We are not a race. There's only one race. It's the human race, and we're all related.
Yeah.
Yes, Miriam.
I don't know if this is anything or not, but when you say to somebody, or when you, in this passage, we're just talking about one son, one was named Gershon. And if you say, and the other one, it doesn't seem to give them equal status.
Exactly.
Say one son is Gershon and one son, it makes it sound like it's not an afterthought that, okay, there was another one that came later. It sounds like they're both equal before God. And it's really that way with each one of us. If God said he created Peggy, then you shouldn't say, and then he created another one. And now you say, he created Peggy, he created Jerry, he created Miriam.
Exactly.
So each person is special in God's sight.
Exactly. And
good follow-up, Miriam. Good follow-up.
Yeah. And together, and all together, we form a community of Am Segula. We are his treasured people. And imagine being treasured. Growing up, my parents were always very busy. They always worked. I love my parents. They had many failures, many faults, many things I was upset with them for many years. But now, as I look back, I see they were just human, and we all make mistakes as parents. So I never felt treasured. Imagine being so loved that, like, you all, when you buy something, Miriam, that you just love and you treasure it.
Right.
It's like it's a simple thing, but I needed a lamp for my living room. And I was looking around for lamps, and my brother he keeps things. They're all very organized. I ask him for something and he'll go and look in his treasure chest. And he showed me the lamps that he had. And this one was passed down from a cousin. And I took a look at it, and it was something that I never imagined that I would choose. And he brought it to me, and there was something about this lamp that I just fell in love with it. It looks like alabaster white. It has like a little angel, and it's just so beautiful. I went out, I spent a fortune on a lampshade because I wanted to honor this treasure that was given to me as a gift. And every time I come into my living room and I open the light and I see that thing, I think, wow, I treasure it. I didn't pay anything for it, and I treasure it. And it's like sometimes that whole idea of feeling treasured by the God of the universe is too big. I can't grasp it.
Right.
And that's more and more. The closer we get to understanding how much our God loves us, the more we can treasure ourselves and take care of ourselves in the best way that we can, because he has given us a gift of life. He has given us, a body that heals. I cut myself the other day, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to play, for the concert, because it really hurt. And within 3 days, 4 days, it was completely healed. And I went, wow, look at God has made a body that heals. That can be treasured. So if we learn what it is really what true halakha, there's a difference. I was explaining the other day that there's a difference between rabbinic Judaism and biblical Judaism, between Christianity and biblical Judaism, between Islam and biblical Judaism. All of those three major religions have drawn what they believe from the Torah. But the only true Judaism, and Judaism, I say it almost with a grain of salt, because I don't know what else to call it, but it's truth. It's God's truths. And we do need to have even a smattering of Hebrew. It helps a lot. And which is, I'm grateful I have at least a little bit of it, but it's so much deeper. It's so tremendous when you learn it from the Hebrew. And, when we can see it from God's perspective, the Torah gives us a code of life. It's a code to live by. It's not rules and regulations that are made by man that enslave us. God took us out of slavery, out of Egypt, so that we could be free. And with freedom comes responsibility. What are you looking at, Jer? You're looking at the...
I was looking for something that I noticed and took note of the emotional description of love, which was treasure, and I took special note of that term as it was mentioned. And also, I'm trying to add it, if I remember, to another term which I was looking. They use the term treasure, and they also use the term precious. There's a psalm or a prayer somewhere in this Siddur, and I think it says, "How precious thy loving kindness."
Yes.
That's what I was looking around. So
Yeah.
I'm not. So pressure and treasure. You don't see these words even in the humans. We don't use these words. We say you love someone, you care for someone,
Yeah.
you're important to them, you need someone. But pressure,
Precious.
precious, and treasure, they're special, and it's sort of special to the Torah, if you like. And that's what I was looking where it was. And there's this year sentence to repeat. It says, "How precious thy loving kindness." That's what I was looking
Yes.
at.
Yes.
If I could do that. I'm not sure if it's a psalm or a prayer somewhere.
Yeah, well, it's also in that poem Footprints, where he says, "My precious child."
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And the other thing that it made me think of was in the story called The Lord of the Rings, and because we can also hold as precious something that can destroy us. And that ring of gold, that ring was called precious, and whoever held it, and it represented all the things that were a detriment to our nature, to our person, to our very being. And it's a story about how the ring came to be with man that was forged in evil, and it had to be destroyed. And anyone who had held it would go, "Oh, my precious." So we have to look at what are the things that we consider precious that keep us away from our Creator. What are the things that we idolize? What are the things that we hold more dear than our God? He needs to we need to make room for him in absolutely every single area of our lives. And this is one of the things that we learn from the stories in the Torah. At these 10 commandments, the rest of the Torah, the rest of the stories, he'll expand on them, of course, in the next verses. But then when we get into Joshua and King and prophets and kings and all these others, we're going to start to see what happens to our people when we obey these 10, and what happens to our people when we disobey the 10. So the 10 are the basics for absolutely everything. Bless you. And what Yeshua, what people don't understand about Rabbi Yeshua, because he's been changed. His character has been totally transformed by Christianity, by that whole Roman church, the whole Christianity, into becoming a Herculean God who took our sins, died for our sins. He had nothing to do with the rabbi who lived in Israel at the time of the Romans. That rabbi had a role, the same way Moses had a role of bringing us his 10 commandments so that we could be or legoyim, we could be a light to the nations. We had lost that role. We were now under the oppression of Rome and the temple, the priests and the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who are under Rome. Literally, they were sold out. And Yeshua was raised at a time when he would be the one who would bring us, he would go amongst the people and he would say, I'm not come to destroy the Torah. I'm coming here to explain it, to show you what it means to be fulfilled so that you can go back to be Or L'Goyim. Because if we're not Or L'Goyim, light to the nations, not only are we lost, but the nations are lost. And that's exactly what's happening in our world today. And we need another one like Yeshua, another Yeshua. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I don't know how the world is going to, to change. All we can do is our little piece within it. But anyway, that's how we look at him in this community. And that's all there is, folks, for today. So if you have nothing else to add, anything else, lady and gentleman, who represents the rest of the ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this recording. So I want to wish you, Jerry, you're ready for the Aaronic benediction. Even if you say it with a Yiddish accent, we'll accept it.
What accent do I usually say it with?
You say, instead of Hebrew, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. That's Hebrew. Now you say it with a little bit of Ashkenazi.
Oh, I see. I see. I use Ashkenazi. Yeah.
You say Adonai, but which is fine because that's what you learn. But for me, it's cute.
Yeah. Well, I was once reading something. I was actually reading a mafter, and I did it the Sephardic style, and I said the brachot in Ashkenazi style. I remember someone asked someone else, "How come he said the brachot?" He said, "Well, learn the brachot this way, learn that and that one."
Exactly.
Okay, we'll do it anyhow. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing written in the Torah by thy servant Moses and spoken by Aaron and his sons, the priests.
Amen.
Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified Kohanim with the holiness of Aaron and commanded us to bless thy people Israel with love.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushonu b'kedushaso shel Aaron, v'tzivonu levarech es amo Yisrael b'ahava. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'choneka. Yisro Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'samu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorachem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his shalom. So shall they put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen, amen. So what's next week's parasha? This week was Yitro. Next week's is, anybody remember? Let me see. It's Mishpatim. I thought that's what it was. Mishpatim. So we're going to get into some of the ordinances that clarify, that show us how to live his commandments. And that's
And the 10 Commandments are summarized in the Deuteronomy as well.
okay.
You know, I'm sure you know.
Yes, say it.
I think it's a pardon.
Go ahead, read it.
No, it's the same thing that we read here in Exodus.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well, the book of Deuteronomy, the last book, the first 4 books, I really believe God was dictating to Moses. The 5th book, Moses is going to be leaving, and he wants to reiterate everything in the first 4. So he's doing his best to leave the children of Israel, knowing that he's leaving. He's going to leave them with his last words, just like we write our will.
It's like all speeches. Speech says you say what you're going to do.
Yes.
Or what you're going to say, then you say it, and then you say what you said.
And then you say what you did.
You summarize what you said.
Exactly.
Miriam?
So good night, Miriam. Thank you so much for your input. Jerry, good night. Good night, Baruch Benjamin. I'm sorry you haven't been able to keep your camera on. And good night, everybody who's out there watching. God bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and give you his shalom. Good night.
Night. Thank you, Peggy. Good night, Jerry.
You're welcome. We'll see you, God willing, next week.
Okay.